Thousands of former Department of Justice officials who were pretty high up the ranks as DOJ officials, they're striking back against the Trump regime and the acting Attorney General, Todd Blanche. Todd Blanche is set to have his confirmation hearing in the United States Senate. And about 1,200, I think it's going to be more than that because I think more people are joining this letter or sending letters of their own, but at least 1,200 former top DOJ officials have sent a letter to Chuck Grassley and Dick Durbin, who are the two heads of the Senate Judiciary Committee, explaining why Todd Blanche, deeply unqualified, betrayed his oath of office, and why appointing him as the actual Attorney General, not the acting, would be completely and utterly catastrophic for the rule of law. And let me just share with you this powerful letter that was sent by these 1,200 former DOJ officials. They say, "Dear Chairman Grassley and Ranking Member Durbin, we serve the public at the Department of Justice as career employees and appointees during both Republican and Democratic administrations. Regardless of how we joined the department, every one of us took an oath to support and defend the Constitution, not the occupant of the White House. That oath now compels us to speak out against the nomination of Todd Blanche for Attorney General, someone who took the same oath but has utterly failed to abide by it. In the coming weeks, many will rightly underscore the corruption and abuses that have defined the Justice Department under Todd Blanche's leadership, the vindictive prosecutions and investigations of Trump's foes, the deals designed to reward lawbreakers with taxpayer dollars, the erasure of accountability for January 6th, the mishandling of the Epstein files, and the denigration of judges and repeated violations of their orders. But we want to focus on an area that deserves just as much attention: Todd Blanche's degradation of the DOJ's apolitical career workforce. Of more than 100,000 employees at the Justice Department, 99% are career civil servants. Anyone who's worked there and through administrations of both parties knows they are the department's backbone. They are the ones who keep us safe by prosecuting violent crime, investigating drug trafficking, and countering terrorism and espionage. They keep us prosperous by enforcing antitrust laws and holding financial fraudsters accountable. They protect our fundamental freedoms by upholding civil rights laws, and they keep our elected officials honest by pursuing public corruption. Todd Blanche knows this. He served as a career DOJ prosecutor for almost a decade, but that hasn't stopped him from demonizing career employees, undermining their work, and driving them out of the department. Under Blanche's leadership, approximately 16,000 employees have left. Let me repeat that. 16,000 employees have left, and departures aren't slowing down. They include FBI agents and analysis and field offices across the country, and more than a quarter of the department's attorneys. Blanche has fired or overseen firings of hundreds of these employees, usually without notice and for improper, unlawful reasons. Some were terminated for having worked on cases the president didn't like, for being relatives of Trump's foes, for adjudicating immigration cases in accordance with due process, for declining to initiate vindictive prosecutions, or for refusing to lie in court. These terminations violate the very civil service statutes designed to prevent corruption and political purges. Many more career employees have left on their own under Blanche's leadership, first as Deputy Attorney General, the department's chief operating officer, and more recently as the DOJ's top officials. For some, their offices were left rudderless after their managers were pushed out. Others resigned rather than follow illegal or unethical orders, or they left because they feared those orders would come. Many left because leadership abandoned or drastically scaled back their work enforcing civil rights, environmental or public corruption laws, while offices that enforced tax laws, ensured access to justice, prosecuted drug trafficking, and reduced community violence were eliminated entirely. Blanche has also overseen initiatives to pull employees away from their mission-critical work. A quarter of FBI staff were reassigned to civil immigration enforcement in the first year. FBI, DEA, and ATF agents have been diverted from their investigation into terrorism, drug trafficking, and organized crime so they could patrol the streets of Washington, D.C. Assistant United States attorneys from across the country were sent to Minneapolis and other cities to respond to protests, and many have had to adjust their dockets to defend an avalanche of immigration-related habeas cases. Not surprisingly, the department has also struggled like never before to recruit talent. Jobs that once attracted hundreds of applicants hoping to carry the badge or represent the United States in court have gone unfilled. DOJ is resorting to desperate measures, including lowering hiring requirements for prosecution and FBI agents and offering signing bonuses and financial incentives for employees to stay. The consequences of Blanche attacks on DOJ's apolitical workforce radiate beyond the halls of Main Justice, affecting the entire country. They've meant that much of the department's vital work isn't being done or isn't being done as well, leaving communities less safe, Americans' rights less protected, and our national security more vulnerable. The culture of fear Blanche has instilled within the DOJ's workforce must end. Respect for career professionals must return. Would-be job applicants need to believe the Justice Department lives up to the virtue in its name. And instead of exhibiting fealty to the president, the Attorney General must heed John Adams' admonition that our republic remains a government of laws, not men. For the sake of the institution we were once proudly serving, we urge you to reject Todd Blanche's nomination. Let me bring in Harry Litman from the Talking Feds YouTube channel, Substack, and podcast. Now, Harry runs that channel, but he was also a former top federal prosecutor, the former United States attorney for the Western District of Pennsylvania, a former top DOJ official in Main Justice in Washington, D.C. Now, Harry, that letter was so powerful, I didn't want to paraphrase or pick apart because our audience needs to see what people who worked for Democrats and Republicans at this scale, 1,200 of them put their name and more are joining. 16,000 have been fired or quit from the DOJ. This is devastating, Harry, and I want to get your take on it because this is an unprecedented letter, but these are unprecedented times.
I think it is an unprecedented letter, Ben, especially in its scope and enormity. It was good and right of you to read the whole letter. I don't think even the most ardent of the Midas Mightier Fed heads would have the time for you to read the entire letter because it's the 2 pages you read, followed by 57 pages of signatures. And as you scan them, your eye falls on all kinds of prominent folks, former lawyers for Trump, people you know about in high positions, but also mainly the career staff, this is the sort of second point. It really is a way of kind of summarizing the total sea change that Blanche not only instituted, but in fact engineered. I was at the final farewell ceremony for Merrick Garland. All you heard about was career employees, the heart and soul of this institution coming to the work in order to do the right thing, giving up the money, all about justice without fear or favor. And for people who have been there, and these 1,200 are just a fraction, it's just true. So this has been the kind of, the numbers don't really even capture the complete denigration and evisceration of everything that is so special about the Department of Justice. The other thing I want to highlight is their last point about the culture of fear, the people who remain, and 16,000 out of 100,000 is already huge, but it's bigger than that because we know they disproportionately selected out the real counselors, the people who really had been there the longest time, and people come to. Those guys have either been forced out or put into ridiculous marginalized, positions and hardly ever working, but not at all doing the important work of the department. So much of which has just been abandoned, like civil rights. So it really speaks volumes. But the point that comes out to me, Ben, is this really bespeaks an overall strategic kind of organization of the opposition to Blanche. In paragraph 3, I think it is, of this letter, they set out in a paragraph the things that really are going to be the focus come next Wednesday, the 15th. And, the absolutely indefensible, worst possible practice of reprisal prosecutions because the president doesn't like someone, even though it's got nothing to do with the facts and the law. Also, Blanche, they serve notice is coming back. Also, the slush fund, other things. But then their ticket is exactly what's happened at the Department of Justice. And I think that's an aspect of Blanche's tenure that won't be front and center on the cable news, won't even be front and center for some of the senators. But for any senator, I can think of 2 or 3 who actually has been at DOJ, something like this. And they probably include names of people who were at DOJ, but also served on their staff. They can really see, oh man, this aspect is just not just revolting, but completely, and I mean completely incompatible with any possible law enforcement purpose, anything other than just the complete capture in raw political terms for the worst and most antithetical conduct that in really DOJ history. So the way these things work, and I think they'll work this way, Blanche comes the first day. The second day, there will be witnesses. And I think many of the witnesses will be about some of these other things. Maybe Epstein victims will be there. Maybe people, for instance, who were forced out, the prosecutors on the Mayor Ford in New York case. But then there will be 1 or 2 people saying, and let me make this extra point and drive it home. And they're really about focusing on the American people, but also 1 or 2 or 3 possible sort of pivotal votes. And I'm talking about Tom Tillis first and John Corwin second. And these arguments will be chosen carefully to try to appeal to them. So to me, as a former AUSA and U.S. attorney, this is huge. Every time I see it, I want to just throw up and throttle everyone who's done it because I know the DOJ. And that's going to be part, but I think it's going to, on the list of Todd Blanche sins, it'll be, 3rd or 4th. And the number 1 thing will be, I think, senators, if you confirm him, you are ratifying the notion that you can just bring cases against the president's enemies. Nothing could be worse. You're going to have to own it. That'll be the lead. But this theme, among others, will be, there's 3, 4, 5 themes, and the former employees will carry this one very strongly.
Yeah. It is horrifying that you would have senators see what's taken place, cover up of child sex trafficking rings, completely just every conflict of interest law, just throwing it aside, gutting the DOJ's critical functions. I mean, just set aside, even if you were, I guess, rooting for the bad behavior because it's like, well, that's illegal, but they're helping us out. We're getting the libs. We're owning the bag. It's like, okay, that's all this stuff has consequences, and it has consequences on the rule of law. You've gutted counterterrorism. You've gutted ethics. You've gutted antitrust. You've gutted environmental. You've gutted civil rights. You've gutted these departments, and they exist to actually keep you and your family safe. Like it comes back, it boomerangs back to you, idiots.
Such an important point, and you and I have made it repeatedly. The real victims here are the public and public safety, not simply of the loss of personnel, but that's significant. Not simply of the loss of expertise, but that's significant. Not simply of the substitution of complete inexperience, but that's significant. But also the loss throughout the country of the presumption of regularity that was a tailwind for the DOJ every time they walked into court. It's no longer there. And who pays for that? Ultimately, the public in reduced public safety. That part's a tragedy.
Everybody, make sure you subscribe to the Talking Feds YouTube channel. Just search Talking Feds, subscribe, and in the comments, tell Harry that Ben says hello.
Which people are doing now, Ben. I'm here to tell you.
Good. Everybody hit subscribe here. Thanks for watching.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.